A letter from the IRS was the last thing I expected until I saw her name on our bank statement. If you told me even 6 months ago that my marriage would fall apart because of a tax audit, I would have laughed in your face. No, scratch that. Actually, I'd have felt a tiny shiver of worry deep down, the kind you get when someone says something so outrageous, it almost sounds true. But back then, I was still the kind of wife who believed that keeping the peace meant letting my husband handle the finances. Money is stressful, Mike always said, and I know how much you hate numbers, babe. Don't worry, I got us. He'd say it with a wink, flipping open his laptop at the kitchen island, our 2 dogs napping at his feet, me stirring pasta and humming along to the 90s playlist on Alexa. I thought we were normal. Not perfect, of course. I don't think anyone is, especially after 12 years of marriage, 2 kids, a mortgage, and the slow, quiet pressure that builds up when one person starts drifting and the other tries not to notice. Still, we had traditions. Friday night pizza and movie marathons. Sunday hikes when the weather was good. Our little house in the suburbs, which Mike called our safe harbor from the storm. I taught 3rd grade at the elementary school a mile away. Mike was a senior accountant at a mid-sized firm downtown. He said he loved my meatloaf more than anything else in the world, except maybe his fantasy football league. Looking back now, the warning signs were all there, just disguised as quirks or routines, or that's just Mike being Mike. He started working late more often, missing dinner with vague explanations about closing out quarterlies or a last-minute client emergency. Sometimes he'd call me from the car, voice muffled, always in a hurry. Other times he'd be home, but distracted, scrolling on his phone, laughter just out of reach. At first, I chalked it up to stress. His company had just landed a big new client, and tax season always meant extra hours. Besides, I trusted Mike. He handled our bills, taxes, investments, everything since we first got married. Back then, I thought it was romantic, even chivalrous. "You'll never have to worry about a thing," he'd say, and I believed him. So I didn't ask questions. Not when he canceled our date night for the 3rd week in a row. Not when he forgot Sadie's piano recital and showed up late to Max's Little League championship game. Not even when I noticed he was buying a lot more new clothes, or when our shared credit card statements started showing random Amazon purchases. Nothing big, just odd things I didn't remember ordering. And then came the letter. It was a Tuesday afternoon. I'd just gotten home from school, still wearing my world's best teacher lanyard, arms full of lesson plans and leftover cookies from a birthday party in class. There it was, on top of the mail pile, an official-looking envelope stamped IRS, addressed to Michael and Emily Carter. For a second, my stomach dropped. We'd always paid our taxes, or so I thought. I almost left it for Mike, but something made me open it. Maybe a flicker of irritation at another, finance, thing for him to handle, maybe just curiosity. Inside was a notice of audit. Routine review, it said, 2018 through 2022. Attached was a list of accounts, a request for supporting documents, and buried on the 3rd page, a list of names. Michael Carter. Emily Carter. Jessica Lynn. I stared at that last name. Jessica Lynn. It didn't ring any bells. Maybe a distant cousin? A typo? I laughed at myself, shook it off, and put the letter aside. But it bugged me all evening, enough that after the kids went to bed, I texted Mike. "Hey, got a letter from the IRS. Need you to look at it." He replied instantly, which was unusual for him at work. "Don't worry, babe, probably just a formality. I'll take care of it." "You sure? Who's Jessica Lynn?" Long pause. "Oh, she's a temp we used last year, for some bookkeeping." That didn't make sense, but I didn't press. Mike was always the smooth talker, always had an answer, always quick to reassure. But this time, something felt off. The next day, I couldn't focus. At school, I snapped at my students for talking too loudly during reading time. At lunch, I reread the IRS letter 3 times. That name wouldn't leave my mind. That night, Mike got home late again. He smelled like aftershave and unfamiliar perfume. I tried to sniff out clues like a bloodhound, but he just kissed my cheek, dropped his keys in the bowl, and disappeared into the shower. I decided right then that I needed to know what was going on. I wasn't the jealous type, not really. But there's a line between trust and willful ignorance. Maybe I'd let it go on too long. I waited until he was asleep, snoring beside me, before I got up and padded into his home office. I'd always respected his privacy, never snooped. But now I opened his laptop, hands shaking, and tried his usual password, Max Sadie 2014. It worked. Emails, spreadsheets, QuickBooks. I was in way over my head, but I started searching for Jessica. There she was, not a temp, not a distant cousin. Jessica Lynn Martinez, address in the city. There were transfers from our joint account to hers, small amounts at first, then bigger ones. Consulting fees, reimbursements. And emails, so many emails. Flirty, intimate, with attached photos and jokes only lovers would share. My heart hammered, I felt sick. But I kept going, screen after screen, date after date, money flowing out of our life and into hers. Receipts for hotel rooms, gifts, even an expensive necklace for your birthday, Jess. I wanted to scream, to smash the laptop, to storm into our bedroom and throw it all in Mike's face. But I didn't. Instead, I snapped photos of everything, forwarding emails to myself, my hands trembling. Back in bed, I lay awake all night, mind spinning. What should I do? Who was I if not Mike's wife, the good teacher, the stable one, the fixer? At 3 a.m., I texted Rachel, my best friend since college. I think Mike's cheating, I have proof. She replied instantly. Come over tomorrow, we'll talk. Looking back now, I wish I'd confronted him that night. Maybe it would have been simpler, cleaner, but nothing about this story was ever going to be clean. The next morning, I called in sick. My principal was sympathetic. Family stuff, I mumbled, and I drove to Rachel's, gripping the steering wheel so hard my knuckles turned white. Her house was warm, safe, familiar. She made coffee, sat me down, and let me spill everything, every sickening detail. Emily, you have to do something, Rachel said, her eyes flashing. This isn't just an affair, it's theft. Financial abuse, you need a lawyer, and you need to protect yourself. Now. I wanted to believe it was a bad dream, that Mike would confess, apologize, and we'd somehow fix it. But deep down, I knew better. I was about to lose everything I thought I knew, about my husband, my marriage, and myself. And that was just the beginning. I left Rachel's house that morning feeling like a woman who just discovered she was living on the edge of a cliff, and now the ground was sliding out from under her feet. I drove home with my phone buzzing in the cup holder, Rachel checking in, my mom sending a meme about self-care, Mike's text popping up. Hey babe, you feeling better? Need anything for dinner? I ignored him, staring at the red lights, my mind a whirlpool of anger, humiliation, and something cold and sharp. Resolve. That day, I picked the kids up from school as usual. Max clambered into the back seat, dumping his backpack on the floor. Can we get ice cream, Mom? It's Friday. Sadie was quieter, staring out the window, lost in her own preteen world. I glanced at them in the mirror, these two innocent faces who believed in family and safety, and my chest ached. Sure, ice cream, I said. Let's treat ourselves. At the drive-thru, as they debated cookie dough versus cotton candy, I realized how easily you can hide a hurricane behind a smile. The kids slurped milkshakes. I pretended everything was fine. But inside, I was counting down the minutes until Mike got home, and the confrontation I knew I had to have. The problem was, every time I pictured it, my hands shook. What if he gaslighted me? What if he flipped it around and said I was being paranoid, ungrateful? Or, worse, what if he confessed, and suddenly everything would fall apart in front of the kids? I called Rachel again. I can't do it, not with the kids around. I'm scared. What if he freaks out? He handles everything, bills, mortgage, the car lease. I don't even know the Wi-Fi password. Rachel was gentle but firm. You have the proof, Em. You're smarter than you think. Take screenshots of everything. Make copies. Move some money to an account only you can access. Don't confront him until you've got a lawyer and a plan. That night, I watched Mike through new eyes. He came home, whistling, a bag of Chinese takeout in one hand, bouquet of supermarket flowers in the other. Feeling better, babe. He kissed my cheek, his lips warm, his eyes crinkling with concern. The perfect husband. Yeah, I'm fine, I lied, forcing a smile. Thanks for dinner. We ate as a family, Max telling us about his science project, Sadie sharing a story about her teacher's new haircut. Mike listened, chimed in, laughed at all the right moments. If I didn't know better, I'd have thought we were the picture-perfect suburban family. But the lie was a burning coal in my pocket. After dinner, Mike did the dishes. I watched him from the hallway, trying to imagine what he was thinking. Did he feel guilty? Did he think he'd gotten away with it? Or, worse, did he not even care? That night, I lay awake again, scrolling through the evidence on my phone. Emails, bank transfers, photos of receipts. I clicked on a link to Jessica's Instagram, heart pounding. There she was, young, pretty, flashy, posing with cocktails and designer handbags. The kind of woman who hashtagged boss babe and living my life. Scrolling down, I found a photo taken at a rooftop bar, the date matching the night Mike had said he was working late. In the background, a man in a blue button-down shirt, his face turned away from the camera. But the watch on his wrist was Mike's, a birthday gift from me. I snapped a screenshot and sent it to Rachel. That's him, right? Rachel wrote back instantly. Absolutely, what a jerk. For the next week, I lived a double life. By day, I taught fractions and grammar, graded homework, packed lunches. By night, I played amateur detective, compiling spreadsheets, digging through credit card statements, looking for anything with Jessica's name. I made an appointment with a divorce attorney, a steely woman named Linda who didn't blink when I showed her the evidence. Financial infidelity, she said, flipping through my notes. And possibly fraud, depending on how he was moving the money. I've seen it all, Emily. The first thing you need to do is protect yourself. Separate account. Passwords. Copies of every document. If you have shared assets, we'll freeze them. And don't confront him until you're ready. Men like your husband, they're good at turning the tables. Linda's confidence was contagious. For the first time in weeks, I felt less alone. I opened a new checking account in my name, transferred half our savings, enough to cover a few months' bills. I set up alerts for every transaction. I checked the deed on our house and discovered, to my shock, that Mike had quietly refinanced it last year, without telling me. The equity had been pulled out. Where did the money go? Every new discovery was a gut punch. At night, when Mike slept, I sobbed into my pillow, muffling the sounds so the kids wouldn't hear. How did I let this happen? Had I really been so naive? Sometimes, I'd look in the bathroom mirror and barely recognize myself. Hair pulled back, dark circles under my eyes, a haunted look that wouldn't go away. One night, Mike found me sitting on the edge of the bathtub, staring into space. You okay? He asked, concern etched on his face. I nodded, swallowing the urge to scream. Just tired, work been crazy. He hugged me, strong arms around my shoulders, and for a moment I let myself remember the man I thought I married. Safe, solid, loving, but even that memory felt like a lie now. Looking back now, I see how fear can make you freeze, how the weight of secrets grows heavier every day you carry them. I wanted to believe it was fixable, that Mike would come clean, apologize, promise to change. But the more I uncovered, the clearer it became. This wasn't a one-time mistake. It was a pattern. He'd built our whole life on a foundation of secrets. A week after the IRS letter, I was grading papers in the kitchen when another envelope arrived. This time, it was addressed to Jessica Lynn Martinez, C.O. Michael Carter. My hands shook as I opened it. Inside was a check, a tax refund payable to Jessica, sent to our address. I called Linda, panic rising in my throat. She's using our address. What does that mean? Linda was calm. It means they're more entangled than you thought. He's probably claiming her as a dependent or paying her through his business. Either way, it's evidence. Bring it to our next meeting. I hung up feeling sick. That night, after the kids went to bed, I confronted Mike. I stood in the doorway, arms crossed, holding the check. Want to explain this? His face went white. He stammered, grabbed for the paper. It's nothing, just a mistake. The IRS screws up all the time. I cut him off. Don't lie to me. Who is she? How long has this been going on? He tried to deflect, raising his voice, blaming me for not trusting him, for spying, for making something out of nothing. I let him rant, let him call me crazy, jealous, insecure. Then I handed him a folder, the emails, the bank statements, the Instagram screenshots. He stared at it in silence. Then, finally, his shoulders sagged. Fine, he said. You want the truth, you can have it, but you're not going to like it. He was right about that. I remember the silence in that moment, so heavy it almost rang in my ears. Mike's shoulders slumped as if he'd been carrying the weight of this secret for years, and now that it was out, he didn't even have the strength to argue anymore. I stood there, my arms crossed, my heart pounding so loudly I thought he'd hear it. He started talking, eyes locked on the floor. It wasn't supposed to get this far, Emily. Jessica was just someone I met at work. She was having a tough time, I wanted to help. Then things escalated. She needed money, she lost her apartment. I let her use our address for some paperwork. That's it. It was never about love. His words made me want to scream. Then, why were you sending her money every month? Why did you refinance our house behind my back? He sighed, rubbing his temples. She was going to lose her kid, Em. She needed stability for custody. The money, it was supposed to be temporary. I was going to pay it all back. I could barely contain my rage. So you stole from your family, from your kids, for her. And then you let me handle all the bills, the school forms, while you played hero for some stranger. Mike flinched at the word stole, but he didn't deny it. I never meant to hurt you. I just got in over my head. Looking at him, I realized he was scared, not of me, but of losing the image he'd built for himself. The breadwinner, the good guy, the provider. But the reality was, he'd been living a double life, and now it was crumbling. I felt numb. Do you love her? He hesitated, then shook his head. No, it was just a mess. She needed me, and I couldn't say no. I swear, Em, it's over now. Please, can we fix this? I'll do whatever it takes. A bitter laugh escaped me. You can't fix this with flowers and apologies, Mike. You broke something in me. You broke us. That night, I slept on the couch, clutching my phone like a lifeline. I texted Rachel, updating her on everything. She replied instantly. You need to talk to Linda. Lock down the accounts. He can't be trusted. The next morning, I moved fast. I called the bank, removed Mike's name from the joint account, and froze the credit cards. I went online and changed every password I could remember, Netflix, Amazon, even the alarm system. If he noticed, he didn't say anything. Linda scheduled an emergency meeting. She reviewed my new evidence, her lips pursed in a thin line. Emily, you need to protect yourself. He can't touch your separate account, but if he tries to withdraw any more equity from the house, call me. The IRS paperwork is a gift, fraud on top of infidelity. He's in deep. I left her office shaking, overwhelmed, but also, for the first time, empowered. I wasn't the clueless wife anymore. I was taking control. Back home, Mike was waiting, packing the kitchen. We need to talk. I nodded, arms folded. Go ahead. He ran a hand through his hair. I made mistakes, I'm sorry, but we have kids, Em, we have a life together. Please don't blow it all up. That old reflex, wanting to keep the peace, to keep the family together, tugged at me. But then I remembered the check, the lies, the empty accounts. I'm not blowing it up, Mike. You are, and I'm not covering for you anymore. I've got a lawyer. The accounts are locked. I know about the house. And I know about Jessica's kid. His face drained of color. You don't understand. She threatened to go public if I didn't help her. I was scared you'd find out and leave. I'm sorry. I shook my head. You should have trusted me, not her, but you made your choice. Now I'm making mine. The days that followed were a blur of paperwork and panic. Mike tried to act normal for the kids, but he was short-tempered and anxious. At night, he'd beg me for another chance, then sulk when I wouldn't relent. I started keeping a notebook, every call, every text, every piece of evidence. Linda said it was crucial for the divorce. Rachel was my rock. She dropped off meals, picked up the kids for playdates, made me laugh when I thought I'd forgotten how. "You're stronger than you think, Em. He doesn't get to take that from you." A week later, the IRS sent another letter, this time an official audit notice. They wanted to review Mike's business expenses, Jessica's tax filings, the whole tangled mess. I felt a surge of vindication. He was finally going to face the consequences, not just from me, but from the government. Mike, on the other hand, was frantic. "You have to help me, Em. Tell them it was a mix-up. If I get audited, I could lose my license. We'll lose the house." I stared at him, astonished by his nerve. "You should have thought about that before. I'm not lying for you." He glared, resentment flickering in his eyes. For the first time, I saw him not as my husband, but as someone I didn't recognize. Someone who would risk everything for his own pride. The next day, I got a call from Jessica. Her voice was shaky. "I never wanted any of this, Emily. I'm sorry. I just wanted some help. I thought Mike was different." I almost laughed. "He's the same with everyone, Jessica. Good luck." That evening, I sat with the kids on the porch, watching them chase fireflies in the fading light. For a moment, peace settled over me, a sense that maybe, just maybe, I could rebuild from here. But as the sun set, I knew this was only the beginning of the fight. If you had told me a month earlier that my life would be reduced to a string of attorney meetings, IRS deadlines, and whispered conversations with my sister while my kids watched cartoons in the next room, I would have said you were insane. But there I was, coffee cup glued to my hand, scribbling notes on every conversation and reading legal blogs at 2 a.m. as if my sanity depended on it. The emotional whiplash was unreal. Some mornings I woke up determined, convinced I was finally getting my life back. Other days, I stared at the ceiling, paralyzed by dread, wondering if I was the villain for ruining our family or the fool for trusting him for so long. What stung the most was how good Mike had been at hiding everything. He still made the kids' lunches, still showed up at soccer games with a smile, still joked with our neighbors about the crazy IRS mix-up. Sometimes, in the quiet moments, I wondered if I'd hallucinated the whole thing. But then I'd get another email from Linda, another reminder of a new account, a hidden check, or a bill I'd never seen, and the anger would come roaring back. I'll never forget the day Rachel convinced me to tell my parents. "You can't keep this all inside, Em. Let someone help you." I'd always tried to protect them from my problems, didn't want to look weak, didn't want to shatter the perfect image of our family. But when I called my mom, voice shaking, and told her everything, she just listened. No judgment, no advice, just love. "We'll get through this, honey," she said, and for the first time, I allowed myself to cry. Not just angry tears, but the aching, soul-deep kind that wash something clean inside you. The IRS audit was a nightmare. Men in suits went through our accounts with a fine-tooth comb. Mike paced the living room, barking into his phone, pleading with the accountant to find a loophole. I kept my distance, answering questions when needed, but mostly watching as the walls closed in on him. Linda called me one night after reviewing the latest paperwork. "Emily, this is textbook fraud. If you cooperate, the IRS will go after him, not you. We need to present everything, including the payments to Jessica, the mortgage, the offshore account transfers. Don't leave anything out." Offshore accounts, I nearly dropped the phone. "Yeah, there's a pattern here. Small transfers to an account in the Cayman Islands, then bigger ones, all in Jessica's name." It hit me like a punch to the gut. Mike hadn't just lied to me, he'd lied to everyone, and he wasn't even that good at it. "Will he go to jail?" I whispered. Linda was calm, but firm. "He could, yes, but first the IRS will want restitution. If you're smart, you'll file for divorce now and separate yourself from his mess." I made my decision that night. No more hesitation. The next morning, after dropping the kids at school, I drove straight to the courthouse and filed. The woman at the counter gave me a sympathetic look as she handed over the stack of forms. Back home, Mike was waiting. He must have seen the bank notifications because his eyes were wild with fear. "What did you do, Em?" I set the folder on the kitchen counter, heart pounding. "I filed for divorce. The accounts are in my name. The house is mine. The IRS is your problem." He looked like he might collapse. "You can't do this to me. I'm your husband. We have kids." I held my ground. "You did this to yourself, Mike. I'm just surviving." That weekend was a blur. My phone blew up with texts from his friends, his mother, even Jessica's cousin, who I'd never met, asking if I could be reasonable and not ruin a man's life over a misunderstanding. It was almost funny if it hadn't been so insulting. Rachel and my parents came over, bringing pizza and ice cream, and we sat around the table, laughing about old stories, pretending, just for a moment, that life was normal. The kids played in the backyard, blissfully unaware of the storm swirling around them. But at night, I couldn't sleep. Every creak of the house made me jump. What if Mike tried to take the kids? What if the IRS changed their minds and came after me too? The anxiety gnawed at me, relentless. A week later, Linda called with news. Mike's lawyer offered a settlement. He wants joint custody, half the house, and he'll take the blame for the taxes. But he wants you to sign a non-disclosure. I snorted. After all this, he wants me to protect his reputation. Linda laughed, a sharp, bitter sound. I told them no way. We'll take our chances in court. I felt lighter after that call, as if a weight had been lifted. The fight wasn't over, but I was no longer afraid. Every day I woke up and remembered, I was strong, I was capable, I was free. One morning, Rachel handed me a journal. "Write it all down, Em, every feeling, every detail. Someday this will just be a story you tell." I started that night, pouring my pain onto the page. It didn't fix everything, but it helped. Looking back now, I realize those days were the darkest, but also the beginning of something new. If there's one thing I learned through all this, it's that people show their true colors when money and reputation are at stake. After filing for divorce and locking down the accounts, I expected Mike to come clean, maybe even beg for forgiveness. Instead, he doubled down, playing the victim, spinning stories for anyone who would listen, and even, at one point, trying to convince the kids that mommy's just upset because daddy works too hard. That was the cruelest part. Our children didn't understand the silent war raging around them. Every time they asked, "When, Dad coming home?" or "Why are you sad, Mom?" it twisted the knife deeper. I tried to shield them, giving simple answers about grown-up problems, but I could see the confusion in their eyes. Sometimes I caught our daughter, Lily, sitting on her bed, clutching her teddy bear and staring at the door, waiting for him to walk in and make things right. But Mike was busy lawyering up, calling in favors and scrambling to cover his tracks. I kept meticulous notes, scanned every document, and forwarded everything to Linda. My house looked like a crime scene, sticky notes on every surface, binders filled with evidence, receipts taped to the fridge. Some nights, I felt like I was living in an episode of Dateline. And then the office drama started. I got an email from an anonymous account with the subject line, "Thought you should know." Inside were screenshots of Mike and Jessica, flirting via company chat, sending selfies, even arranging secret lunches on the company card. Someone at his work wanted me to see the truth. At first, I was humiliated. Then, I was furious. I printed everything, handed it straight to Linda, and sat back, wondering just how deep the rabbit hole would go. Meanwhile, the IRS audit kicked into high gear. Mike was summoned for a formal interview, and I was called as a witness. I wore my best suit, walked in with my head held high, and told the truth. Every single detail. Linda sat beside me, cool as ice, coaching me through the jargon and the legalese. During the break, Mike cornered me in the hallway. "You don't have to do this," he hissed, eyes darting around. "We can fix this. I'll tell Jessica it's over. I'll pay the fines. Just, please, Em, don't destroy me." That's when I realized he wasn't sorry. He wasn't devastated by the pain he'd caused or the trust he'd shattered. He was just terrified of being exposed, of losing his money, his job, his reputation. It hit me like a slap. I'd been fighting for a man who didn't even exist anymore. I stared at him, searching for the person I married, but all I saw was fear and selfishness. "I'm not doing this to destroy you, Mike," I said quietly. "I'm doing it to save myself and our kids." He stormed off, and I returned to the interview room, feeling stronger than I had in months. The fallout was explosive. The IRS seized Mike's accounts. His employer opened an internal investigation. Jessica's husband, oh, yes, she was married, too, filed for divorce after the news went public. Suddenly, our story wasn't just a family drama, it was office gossip, the talk of PTA meetings, even whispered about in line at the grocery store. People I'd barely spoken to before reached out, offering support, advice, or just an ear to listen. Some told me their own stories, tales of betrayal, loss, and hard-won freedom. I realized I wasn't alone. There was a whole world of women and men who'd survived heartbreak and come out stronger. Still, some nights I sat awake, replaying everything in my mind, the signs I'd missed, the moments I could have left sooner, the love that had turned into something unrecognizable. But writing in my journal helped, as did talking with Rachel and my mom. Therapy became a weekly ritual, a place to grieve, to vent, to rebuild. Then came the day of the big confrontation. The IRS invited Mike, his lawyer, Linda, and me to a final mediation. It was tense, awkward, and oddly surreal. I spoke my truth calmly and clearly while Mike squirmed in his seat. Linda presented our case, every dollar, every transfer, every lie. By the end, the IRS official leaned back, folded his hands, and said, "Mr. Carter, your actions have consequences. Mrs. Carter, you've shown remarkable courage." Walking out of that office, I felt lighter. I'd done what I needed to do, not out of spite, but out of necessity. As the divorce proceedings wrapped up, I made one last decision, to go public with my story. Not for revenge, but for release. With Rachel's help, I wrote a detailed post on social media, sharing the facts, with the advice of my lawyer, of course. The response was overwhelming. Hundreds of messages, comments, and new connections. People thanked me for my honesty, for standing up for myself, for refusing to be shamed into silence. Looking back, I saw how far I'd come, from a wife who blindly trusted, to a woman who fought for her freedom, her children, and her own self-worth. I was finally starting to see a future beyond the mess, a future I'd build for myself, on my own terms. The hardest part of telling the truth isn't the fallout. It's the silence that comes after the echo in your home, the awkward glances at school pickup, the empty spot at the dinner table where someone you once loved used to sit. For weeks after the IRS mediation, I moved through life in a fog, handling logistics, scheduling calls with my lawyer, answering endless questions from the kids, and pretending I was okay. But inside, I was rebuilding, one brick at a time. Rachel came over often, bringing coffee and dumb movies, refusing to let me wallow. "This is your fresh start, Em," she told me, nudging me toward little pleasures, planting flowers on the balcony, baking cupcakes with Lily, rediscovering books I'd long forgotten. Sometimes we'd sit in silence, just holding hands. It was enough. My mom visited, too, her fierce support wrapping around me like a blanket. She confessed things I'd never known about her own marriage, tiny cracks that had nearly broken her and my dad, secrets she'd hidden for years. I realized, for the first time, that strength and vulnerability can exist side by side. Mike, meanwhile, was unraveling. His accounts were frozen, his job suspended pending the company's investigation, and Jessica, the mistress who'd once seemed like his other life, ghosted him completely. When her husband filed for divorce and included Mike in the court filings, the scandal became a local news item. I thought I'd feel triumphant, but I didn't. Mostly, I felt sad for the years we'd wasted, the family he'd broken for someone who was never truly his. One morning, as I walked Lily to school, she slipped her small hand into mine. "Mom," she whispered, "are we going to be okay now?" I knelt down to her level, looked into her big brown eyes, and promised, "We already are, baby. We already are." That was the moment I knew I was done letting fear dictate my future. The divorce finalized quickly, considering the mess. I kept the house, the car, and enough savings to give the kids a stable life. Mike, now jobless and notorious in our town, was left with nothing but debts and regret. Jessica disappeared from our lives, her social media wiped clean, her name a footnote in a story no one wanted to tell. With Rachel's encouragement, I started a blog, not to relive the trauma, but to help others in similar shoes. I wrote about red flags, about choosing yourself, about how sometimes letting go is the bravest thing you can do. My story was picked up by a few local women's groups, and soon I was speaking at meetups, sharing my experience. I even made a few TikToks, awkward at first, then empowering, watching as strangers thanked me for my honesty. Looking back now, I see that none of this would have happened if I'd kept quiet, if I'd let shame win. Instead, I turned the wreckage of my marriage into a foundation for a better life. I didn't just survive, I grew. My kids saw a mom who stood up for what was right, who fought for her family, and who refused to be a victim. Do I miss the life I thought I had? Sometimes. There are lonely nights, moments when the pain sneaks in and I wonder what could have been. But there's also hope. There's pride. There's the thrill of a new chapter and the peace of knowing I'll never settle for less again. If you're listening, if you've ever felt betrayed, lost, or scared to start over, know this: you are stronger than you think. Some lessons cost you everything you once thought was secure. But freedom, real freedom, is worth every tear, every fight, every sleepless night. And if my ex and my ex-best friend are still out there, I hope they're happy with the fortune I left behind. Because the real treasure was never the money, the house, or the cars. It was me, finding myself, one messy, beautiful day at a time. That's my story. And for the first time in a long time, I can finally say, this is only the beginning. Subscribe to my Mia's Stories YouTube channel for raw, emotional stories and authentic insights that encourage healing, growth, and understanding. Don't forget to be part of a supportive space where stories inspire and lessons resonate. What do you think about this story? Let us know in the comments. Your opinion truly matters to us, and we're here for you.